You're listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Glad you can be here again on another podcast of All Things Sports with Mike Davis. I thank you for including my podcast into your day. If you're listening on Spotify, follow the podcast. If you're on the YouTube side of things, subscribe, comment, like, all that good stuff. Go to the social media links in the description box to get in contact with the show for comments or suggestions. I won't take up much more of your time. Let's get into it. All right. So, has anybody seen that Jerry Jones is just going to start taking players' numbers and just start handing them out to rookies? I mean, you talk about the disrespect. Jerry Jones, in my opinion, should go down as one of the worst owners in sports histories. You know, we get on guys like what's the Washington football team formerly known as, you know what, Daniel Snyder. Now he is pretty terrible. But right here in Atlanta, we had who owned the Falcons before Arthur Blank, Rankin Smith, and I thought he was a terrible owner. But Jerry Jones just takes the cake. Jerry Jones is doing things that he should not even be involved in. I mean, isn't Jerry Jones like 137 years old now? Why is he still running the team? Hasn't he done enough? I mean, he ran Jimmy Johnson out of town. Cowboys have yet to recover from that. Well, I take that back. They won one Super Bowl without Jimmy. But that was still Jimmy Johnson's team when Barry Switzer took over. But, yeah, I saw something where Jerry Jones is going to take one of the players' numbers or what. You know, normally players handle that amongst themselves. But Jerry Jones, anytime he can get into the spotlight himself, he will take it. All right, look, hey, we got a great show for you today. And I'm going to just jump right into it. I want to know, is Jameis Winston a bust? All right, so you already know the story. You know, after 5 years as the starter in Tampa, the Buccaneers, they decided to part ways with Jameis Winston, signing Tom Brady in the process. Now, Winston, remember, he was the number one overall pick for the Buccaneers in 2015, coming out of Florida State. Now, he finished his time in Tampa with a 28-42 overall record. Never made the playoffs. Now, I saw that there was a sports station in Orlando, 96.9, the game. Now, I'm going to see if I can put the tweet up of what they said if I can. You'll see it here. Now, they seem to think that Winston is a bust. Now, well, I should say that Zach on the mic, who I believe is no longer with the station, put up the tweets saying that. And, you know, I found that, you know, with him stating his opinions. Now, even though these tweets are from a little over a year ago, I'm pretty sure that he still thinks that way, being that Brady helped the Bucs win a Super Bowl. Now, Brady, my thing is, Brady didn't have to carry the team the way the Bucs wanted Jameis Winston to. Now, look, I can think, you know, it's a number of reasons that Jameis Winston isn't in Tampa today. You know, Brady is number one. You got eating a W is number two. Management is number three, and so on and so on. Look, Winston got a raw deal. He got a raw deal, and he got a short leash. You know, playing for multiple head coaches, him and Bruce Arians, it just didn't work. But I want to give you some history. Let's go down memory lane right quick to show you that Jameis Winston got a raw deal in Tampa. All right, let's go all the way back to 1962. Now, George Blanda at 35 years old. Keep in mind, 35 years old compared to a 25-year-old Jameis Winston when he threw his 30-plus picks. At 35 years old, George Blanda threw 42 interceptions and kept his starting job the next season. Now, this was in an era where they didn't even throw the ball. George Blanda is in the Hall of Fame. That year, he had 418 attempts. Listen to the attempts also when I tell you this. Listen to the pass attempts. So George Blanda, 42 picks, 418 passing attempts at 35 years old, kept his job the next season. All right, let's go to 1988. Vinny Testaverde threw 35 interceptions, kept his job for the next several seasons in Tampa of all places. Vinny Testaverde, that year he threw 35 interceptions, 466 pass attempts. Here's a guy I talked about on a previous podcast when talking about Tom Brady and will the Bucs retire his number. Frank Tripucka. He threw 34 interceptions in 1960, which is still a Broncos record, by the way. He kept his job the next season. Not only that, but he had his number 18 retired by the Broncos. Now, there's a whole backstory to that. I'm pretty sure, if you don't listen to the podcast, you're going to say, how is that possible? But Peyton Manning wore number 18 for the Broncos. I talked about it in a previous podcast. Go look it up. It's the Brady, with the Bucs retired Brady's jersey. You can get all the information about the number 18 there. It's Frank Tripucka's number. It is what it is. All right, so they retired that number, and he is in their Ring of Honor. And they apparently in Denver, they love Frank Tripucka. Okay, 34 interceptions in 1960 for him. Now, of those quarterbacks I just mentioned, two of the top three quarterbacks for most picks in a season are celebrated. One is in the Hall of Fame. One is in the Broncos Ring of Honor, and his number is retired. Now, they threw those picks, with the exception of Testa. Well, I'm gonna say they were still running the ball with Testaverde through those picks. Those guys threw those picks in an era where teams ran the ball. Another guy, Fran Tarkenton. Tarkenton threw 32 picks. The guy's in the Hall of Fame. Now, granted, it was his last season, but still. I just had to get that in there, okay? But I guarantee you that he would have kept his job. He would have kept his job. I guarantee you he would have kept his job even though he threw those 32 picks. But he's in the Hall of Fame. Let's go to 2005. Brett Favre. Brett Favre had 20 touchdown passes to 28 interceptions. 607 pass attempts. All right. He was Green Bay starter the next season. After that, people. He was not benched. Peyton Manning, 1998. He threw 28 interceptions, 575 pass attempts, 28 interceptions. Now, I give him a little leeway. He was a rookie that year. So I give him a little leeway. He's learning the NFL ropes. That's still a hell of a lot of interceptions, though. But look, it paid off. We saw what happened with Peyton Manning. He went on to become one of the greatest of all times. I can't put him as the GOAT because Tom Brady is the GOAT. All right. So now we get to Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston threw 30 interceptions in 2019. 626 pass attempts. He had more pass attempts than all those guys I just mentioned. All those guys I just mentioned. All the guys I mentioned are in the Hall of Fame, or they are in their team's Ring of Honor, and their number is retired, with the exception of Vinny Testaverde. Jameis Winston had the most pass attempts of any of the quarterbacks I just mentioned. All those quarterbacks are celebrated but Testaverde. All of them. Now, Winston not only, he threw 30 picks, I get it, but that year he led the league in passing. He threw for 5,109 yards. I think the only guy who led the league in passing that did that and led the league in interceptions as well was What's his name? I just mentioned his name. With the Broncos, Frank Tripucka. I mean, he had Frank Tripucka. Like I said, I've mentioned him on another podcast. He had, if you go back and look at his numbers, and I know it's a different era, but he had the strangest career. And the Broncos celebrated him. You know, and he's no longer here with us, so I'm not going to really dog the guy or whatever. But I'm just making a point. And Winston didn't get a fair shake in Tampa. He threw 33 touchdown passes. Now, if Brady hadn't come along, Jameis Winston wouldn't have went anywhere. And I was a little worried about that because, you know, I'm sure Jameis Winston would not have wanted to take a backseat to Tom Brady and learn a little bit under him. Instead, he ends up going to New Orleans and learning under Drew Brees and Sean Payton. Personally, I thought he should have went to Pittsburgh. I thought he would have flourished under Mike Tomlin, and he could have learned learn under Ben Roethlisberger as well, because Roethlisberger is going out. Roethlisberger, this is probably going to be it for him. This is his last season, and Pittsburgh is looking for a young QB. I thought Jameis Winston would have been great up in Pittsburgh playing under Mike Tomlin, but they signed Dwayne Haskins, and I'm not throwing in the towel on Dwayne Haskins. I think that's another guy, albeit he's immature, you know, but I don't even think he's 25 years old yet. How many of us had it together before we were 25? So I'm not throwing in the towel on Dwayne Haskins. So, look, I understand why Tampa went with Brady. I get it. But Winston is not a bust. And with the right team, with stability, he'll be one of the top passing quarterbacks in this league again, minus the interception. I just don't understand how those quarterbacks I just mentioned, you can celebrate those guys. Especially, I remember when not Tom Brady, I'm sorry, but Brett Favre was a interception machine. Interception machine. Kept his job. Kept throwing them out there. And now people want to look at Jameis Winston as a bust. I think Winston only signed with the Saints to get back at Tampa. You know, I really think he would have done better going to Pittsburgh. And, you know, you get back at them by learning how to play quarterback. And look, he knows how to play quarterback. You just don't throw for 5,100 yards, you know, by mistake. You know. All right, so there's the whistle. The whistle's telling me, look, that's enough, Mike. You've been going on, rambling on, and I have a tendency to do that. I can ramble on if no one stops me. So there's the whistle. I'll move on and leave it there. What are your thoughts? Is Winston a bust? In your opinion, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are. All right, so let's go on to this day in sports, May 4th. This day back in 2002, Barry Bonds hits his 400th home run as a San Francisco Giant in a 3-0 win over the Cincinnati Reds. Now, Barry Bonds is the first player with 400 home runs for one team and 100 for another, that other team being the Pittsburgh Pirates. All right, hey, look, that's all I got for you today, folks. I thank you for including my podcast into your day. If you're listening on Spotify, do yourself a favor, follow the podcast. If you're on the YouTube side of things, subscribe, comment, like, all that good stuff. Go to the social media links in the description box to get in contact with the show for comments or suggestions. You've been listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis, and remember, it's your world. I'm just giving my opinion. I'm out. Peace.
You're listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis.